Good morning, everybody. Hold on, let me get this down here. I'm Nick, and welcome to our daily morning discussion about all the stuff that we find most important and what we need to be doing every day. This is our daily session for Define My Day. My goal here is to help anybody, stay healthy, especially now during this time. Like, stay healthy, focus on what's most important to you, and live the life that you want, regardless of circumstance. So that's what we're here for. So I appreciate you joining me. We try to have a little bit of fun here. We talk about some serious stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. We're going to be talking about how people offload their emotions. And I think right now, we could potentially be doing that ourselves, especially when we're in a confined space. So I want to go over that with you and make sure that we can try to navigate this so that we don't offload our own emotions and actually manage them in the right way. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Just anything you guys have questions about. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. This works better when you guys talk back, when you ask questions and let me know what you're thinking or what you're going through. So I look forward to hearing from you as we go through this today. Probably be here between, half an hour to an hour. So depending on, how the conversation goes. Good morning, Carrie. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me. The first thing we've been starting with lately, trying to lighten it up a little bit, are our memes of the day. So we started off with one meme for the day, and there's so many, it's kind of hard to do that. So now we do a couple of memes of the day. So our first one is our little reminder here. 9 p.m. is the time. You pop up on your phone. It's the time to remove your day pajamas and put your night pajamas on. Yeah, right. I don't know that I've worn anything but sweatpants and shorts for the past month. Then there's also, heading out to grab all our things on our list. I've actually felt very much like, this show always comes to mind anytime there's something like this going on. Not that something like this goes on very often, but anytime I had a thought about like something like this ever happening, this popped up. And then last one, our changing priorities. Overslept. I was late today for my morning meeting on the couch. So, yeah, that's where we are. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Angel. Good morning, Levi. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you guys being here with me. All kinds of stuff going on. Look, I think life goes on no matter what. Hopefully for us. We have stress and we get used to it. We adapt. We overcome all the stuff. This stuff has been going on throughout human history, and we'll find a way through this one too. So we'll keep going, keep going. But we want to continue to stay healthy, right? We want to continue doing what we need to do for ourselves. Lori, you love the memes. Good. We'll keep bringing them, and there is no shortage. That is for sure. Yeah. So we had a crazy thunderstorm last night roll through here, and I saw somebody say that there was a report of a tornado in Pittsburgh, which is not very common. We definitely don't have the landscape that promotes tornadoes, but it's happened here in the past, over the past couple of years, and last night was nuts. A lot of wind. I didn't really know what I was going to be waking up to this morning, although it looks pretty good. Lynn got a scare, so Lynn had an interesting morning. The extent of my morning is looking out at the cars and seeing all the cherry blossoms that have blown off of the tree that are now on the car, and I'm gonna have to hose the cars off before the leaves like bake onto the paint, because at that point, then it's just a pain in the butt. And none of the car washes are open, so you can't really go get them washed off. But last night, I had a crazy dream in the middle of the night. Lynn said that she woke up to me giggling in my sleep, which is a change because my dreams have generally been like nightmarish for the past couple, like stressful for the past couple of weeks. And Last night I had like a fun one. It was long too, long and detailed. And so it was like an enjoyable dream, which I appreciate. But she like woke up to me giggling in my sleep, which that doesn't happen often. But she also, when she went outside this morning to see what had blown around, and she went to go pick up it's like a home sweet home kind of thing we have on our front porch, and she picked it up, and there's a raccoon behind it, like on the wall, like on the wall of our house, like attached to the brick. And I guess that when she grabbed the sign, it scared the both of them, and the raccoon went running, and she went running. Um, and she came back and peeked around the corner, and it was like scurrying off someplace. So I guess that thunderstorm stirred up a lot around here. Yeah. So, but last night as a family, we did Taco Tuesday last night, so we had tacos, and I made some homemade guacamole because we have to go through all of our avocados. I bought too many, but I can't not make guacamole. And made some street corn, and it was everything was really good, and I was determined, although I got some pushback. I was determined to have some family time after dinner, and we sat around the couch in the living room, and just talked like about whatever, like random stuff. And it's funny because when I first started, my boys were like, they're like, "So what are we doing?" And I was like, "Nothing. We're just gonna talk." And so they sat there, and they're just looking at me like, "Okay, sounds like a plan," right? But and this is that opportunity that we miss right now. And I noticed it a long time ago. If you get in the car and the passenger of the car immediately goes to her phone, like that's a missed opportunity to speak, right? And if people at the dinner table are on their phones, that's a missed opportunity to speak. Like we we if we just automatically distract ourselves with things, whatever that might be, it takes away this ability to like critically think or like be a little bit creative. I don't know exactly what it is, but it certainly tamps down conversation and interaction with the people around you. And you'll notice it. I mean, we don't allow electronics at the table, right? We talk at the table. But in the car, it was a problem for us, and I was noticing it because I would turn to talk, and Lynn would be on her phone, and then like I would immediately like turn back ahead and like turn up the radio or listen to a podcast, right? Conversation done, right? And so we stopped having that or we started, I'm sorry, having that conversation that like let's like not do that. I mean, like sometimes we will, but let's not make it a habit where every time we're together, that one of us grabs our phone, and then like there's no opportunity to have any kind of conversation. And it's amazing, like there have been times where we've had a conversation that we would otherwise have not had, and we accomplished something small. But like these little things that we miss they get kicked down the road, and they kind of, if it's a problem, it festers. And even if it's not a problem, like it's something that doesn't get resolved, so it kind of piles up. And so if we're constantly distracting ourselves with our phones, we're not having the daily connecting interactions that we need to have, you know? And when you're on your phone, you're generally not connecting. You're just kind of scrolling, right? And just like really not doing anything. But if you have these connecting conversations, life changes. And so last night, I basically put the four of us in a room. My wife grabbed a glass of wine. I made myself a margarita. It was Taco Tuesday, so I made myself a margarita, and we just sat there. And I was looking around, and the floor was kind of a mess. My kids were doing puzzles over the past couple of days, so I said, okay, the puzzles are done. They've been sitting out for a couple of days. Why don't we start putting them away? So my youngest Ryan starts putting his puzzle away and starts joking around. And then my father called in with my stepmom, and they FaceTimed with the boys, and like it turned into like this giggle session that if you have a big family, like where the family gets together, like we used to get together on Sundays, right? And it was just like the TV would be on, they'd be watching basketball or football or whatever. And then like just people just have like random like conversations, sometimes yelling, talking over each other. It was like just this like cauldron of conversation, and like, whatever comes out of it comes out of it. Or you sit at the table and play cards or whatever, right? And so we're losing that, I feel. And so, I sort of forced it on us last night for an hour. It wasn't like forever because the boys did want to, play a little bit of Fortnite or whatever before they went to bed, which is something we're allowing them to do right now. But, we were together and we had some crazy, hilarious conversations. Ryan was like rolling around on the floor giggling at one point. My dad and my stepmom were having a good time on the phone watching. Um, and we just talked about stuff. And it's just that those are things that, probably happened on a regular basis for a lot of families before the TV showed up, right? Before like like that stereotypical, like the guy walks in the house from work and sits down in front of the TV and puts a TV dinner on his lap, and that's all that happens, right? I feel like, like that whole like get around the table and BS hasn't happened in a while, and maybe this is an opportunity to do it. I know after last night, like, we need to do more of it. I feel like last night I walked away from that feeling pretty satisfied with how that went. So that's going to be one of my priorities going forward. And I'm going to be talking about that in my own Define My Day as I go forward. So definitely an experience. Especially if you somewhat get along with the people you live with, it's probably good. But if there's a lot of like hostility or anger there, that might be something you have to work through in a more structured manner. But I know we probably couldn't have 5 years ago. I mean, it might have been a whole different thing 5 years ago. We might have just been fighting. But it's different. It takes steps, and it takes time. Patty, you had thunderstorms there in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, some big one. It was loud, really loud. I'm surprised my kids didn't wake up. My wife did at some point. We just didn't, I guess, communicate that we were both awake at the same time. Um, but like it wasn't worrisome for me. Although I just wanted to get back to sleep. It was so loud I couldn't sleep. Good morning, Helen. Good morning, Stacy. Yeah, Angel, you insist on no technology at your dinner table. We're the same way. We're the absolute, like, it's off the table, away. Like, we don't even want to like see an alert and look down, like, because that just stops conversation. Good morning, Mary. Levi had huge hail, high winds, and lightning. Didn't go near the windows at all. Kind of scary, weird times. Yeah, one of my friends posted, "Is anybody else scared right now?" Like in the middle of the night on Facebook, and got a bunch of comments and stuff. It was pretty funny. Good morning from Hawaii, Angela. Man, I sort of wish I was in Hawaii right now. Uh, Mary has a game called Table Topics that we are playing during the meals. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. We have noticed with our boys that you know as they get older and they want to interact with their friends on the PlayStation or the Nintendo Switch or iPad, they want to hurry away from the table, and we've had to reiterate constantly that this is not a time to rush away. Like, we are going to be here, and we're going to wait until everybody's done, and we're going to talk. So we haven't set like a limit. Like, we're going to be here for an hour or a half an hour or whatever. But there will be no rushing away, and nobody leaves until everybody's done. In fact, it's funny that harkens back to my grandfather. My grandfather taught me something. Anytime we'd go to lunch together, if the waitress came by to grab one of our plates before the other was done, he would say, "No, leave it here. It's rude to take it away." And I always think of that every time because it's just common for a server or a busser to clean away dirty plates before the other person is finished or other people at the table are finished. But to my grandfather, old school Italian, that was incredibly insulting to the person that was still eating. So, that was his thing. And I always think of that every time. And sometimes I allow it to happen. Other times I say, no, I'll wait. But, I mean, it's like these little old school, there's some old school manners that I believe should probably come back. We're maybe too involved in efficiency or just getting things done. I think, and that's kind of making me think of that all right now. One of the things that I noticed yesterday. So me and my two boys were playing Fortnite together as a squad, and noticing, I've sort of been noticing it, but I noticed it a lot when playing with them, is like working together as a team, uh, and in hearing arguments like, "Oh, that was my kill," whatever. Like they have this conversation, and they all go off and do their own thing, and the squad loses because everybody's doing their own thing and they're not communicating, and so that was bothersome to me a little bit, knowing that they're young, right? They can learn this stuff, but how do they learn it? They only learn it by being taught it. So they'll either learn it through their friends, from because their friends learned it somewhere, or they'll learn it from me. So I'm observing it, and I had to make sure that I circled back to the conversation about why a squad, like even going back to like military experience, why a squad has to work together for the greater good rather than just each individual's goals. And for my one son, I was talking about, bringing it back to football. Like it's the guy that always puts himself above the team that causes the whole team to fail. And nobody cares. Like maybe the one guy cares, but the goal is to win the Super Bowl, right? And so if the receiver gets a 99-yard completion, is down at the 1 yard line, it's not that he has to get that score. Like they'll give it to the lineman if the lineman can get in. They'll use the highest percentage play if they're smart, just to get the win for the game, right? And so trying to explain that, and how to work as a team and communicate. It's a complicated concept for a 9 and a 6-year-old, right? But it's one of those things that I identified yesterday and over the course of the past couple of weeks, that I need to take more time on a daily basis to teach this concept going forward. And it's probably one that, like, it's funny because as I observe my boys, they're both pretty empathetic. They both, can focus when we get them to that place. My one son, my oldest son, I've talked about how he, does he does first things first. Like today, he was up again before even breakfast. He was at work, doing his schoolwork. But I've always had a hard time as part of a team. I grew up kind of a loner, in a way, bullied, so I learned to depend on myself more than anybody else. And the little lessons they get from me are probably, they're not actively hearing me say you can only count on yourself, but maybe they picked up a little bit of that, based on how I've been over the past 9 years, even if I've moved away from it recently. So maybe I need to more strongly educate them on why working together as a team you can do more than on your own. So, just things that I'm aware of as I'm, like little nuance and little changes that I might need to make going forward with how I teach my kids. So, and there's little things that I'm learning as I go along too. And it's, there's always room for improvement. Is small steps forward, keep moving forward. All these things we say all the time using Define My Day, it applies everywhere. Levi, keep keep that up, mom and dad. That is precious time. They will continue to push back because of the changes going on with them growing up. But good on you guys. Don't stop. Yeah, and I'm feeling that pressure. Like like thinking to myself, my oldest is 4 years away from high school. He's 6 years away from driving. He's 8 years away from being out of the house and going to college. Oh my! Like it just seems like it's going so fast. So yeah. Good morning from Orange Park, Florida. Overcast and warm. I wish it was warmer here, but the sun's starting to come out, so we're doing okay. Pre-bussing the tables has a lot to do with the flow of restaurant service. If you keep your plate like that, you can help your server by consolidating everything onto one plate and stacking your dishes. Yeah, so it's funny because there's perspectives, right? So you bring up a good point, and and so here is, it's all a matter of perspective. I don't care whether you're talking about the coronavirus or how you clean your plate or your table at a restaurant. So my perspective as a customer and my grandfather's perspective is that it's rude to remove the plates, right? But the perspective of the server or the busser is that they have work to get done. They're not getting paid a ton of money to do this, and they just need to get it done so they can have dishes back getting cleaned, so they can, like, and because if they wait to do yours, then they're going to be waiting, like then it's all going to pile up on them, right? So then they're maybe going to have a lot more work and they're going to be standing around, and if they are standing around and they see somebody's plate that needs to be taken care of, they're not running to go take care of it, and then somebody's looking at them going, "Why aren't you working?" So there's perspectives on both sides, right? So at least maybe if somebody says, "No, I'll keep my plate here," they can go back to their manager. If the manager says, "Why aren't you doing anything?" Well, they told me they don't want their plate gone. Like, so there's always perspectives. And this is, Angel, I'm glad you said this, because this is huge. You never know the perspective of the person you're talking to. And so if they are, in your mind, a radical in any direction, there is something that made them come to that point. There's some pressure, something they learned in life, something that's causing them to be this way. And it might be 100% wrong. But taking the time to understand why they might be like that is incredibly important. Rhonda, you're welcome. You're welcome. And Rhonda says, yes, great perspective. We need to look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 10-year plan individually and collectively. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, we keep coming back to it all the time. There's just parts of our day that we're always like circling back to try to figure it out. And I came across this one article that I thought it's probably pretty appropriate to talk about right now. I didn't absorb it well enough because I just came across it, and I'm just going to post it in the comments here. The article is "The Danger of Absolute Thinking is Absolutely Clear." And it goes into, like the intro to this is actually very telling. So if you think of the most happy and well-adjusted person you know, what can you say about their thinking style? Are they dogmatic, with an all-or-nothing outlook on the world? Do they place totally rigid demands on themselves and those around them? When confronted with stresses and misfortunes, are they apt to magnify and fixate on them? In short, do they have an absolutist thinking style? Probably not. And so I'm going to post this link so you guys can read this if you feel compelled to. But that article, it places it in very clear terms for me. If you notice the people that are absolute in their thinking, where they are, I am right, everybody else is wrong, F you all, right? I mean, that's kind of the attitude that you can probably think of somebody like that. Are they really happy? And the answer is generally no, right? It's generally no. So it's the people that leave some doubt, some ability for argument, some ability for perspective, like what we're talking about right now. Those are the people that are happy. The people that are so ingrained in their own way of thinking and the rest of the world is wrong, or this group of people is wrong, they're always complaining about everybody else that's wrong. They're always railing against society or a group of people or whatever. Those people are never happy. So, and we all fall victim to absolute thinking or black and white thinking, and they even mention that in the article. Like, we all fall victim to it, right? Like, it just happens. Like, we have certain things we believe we are absolutely right on. And I would say that there's a lot of things that I've felt that way about through my life, and I kind of go, no. I mean, I've changed a lot in life. My political views have shifted considerably. My views on relationships have shifted, and my views on business have shifted. And I might, and I've gone from one extreme to the other, and am settling somewhere in the middle, I believe. But things may change depending on how I grow and what my priorities and values are, right? But I am less and less of a black and white thinker every day. And I think this article is going to even further reinforce that. So Levi asks, how do we negotiate perspective with someone who's just concerned about being right, not about empathy and solution? And you're asking because of the co-parenting climate right now. That's hard, you know, and I know a lot of parents that are dealing um, with this issue. And when I hear about some of the stories they tell me, um, man, I can't. I don't know how to navigate it. I'm not that much of an expert. You know, for me, I'm in the space now where I'm trying to make my really important relationships work as best they can now. So that would be my wife, my kids, and my close friends, right? Um, and I've also taken the stance that there's a lot of relationships I need to completely let go of. And I'm trying to attract the relationships that are most compatible with where I want to go in life, right? So, how do I handle relationships that are clearly toxic, uh, while like how do I can't get rid of them, right? They're not ones that I can put to a distance because maybe we share a child or whatever. I'm lucky enough not to be in that position. I know a lot of people that are in that position, and how do you handle it? I think I it's hard. I mean, the answer is seeking first to understand. The answer is honoring that they have a different point of view. The answer is um, trying to be empathetic toward them even when you're not getting it back. However, I also see the value in straight up argument and force, whether it's legal, demands, ultimatums. Like I know that no therapist and no idealist is going to say that making demands and being forceful in rhetoric or argument is a good thing. But there are certain people that only respond to that, right? Um, so, how do we navigate that? I don't know. I don't know. There is actually a book out there written by one of the FBI's chief negotiators. Um, and I will have to look that one up. Um, he goes from everything from negotiating hostage situations to a price of a car. And so I'll see if I can find it and I'll post it in the comments for you. Yeah. And the last thing I want to talk about before we get into this part of Brene Brown's book, the last thing I want to talk about, Luann and I, who's probably watching, hi Luann if you're watching, uh, we were talking today about making customers happy, right? Because we've noticed a little uptick in the tone of things from customers that contact us. The tone is just a little bit more. I think grumpy was the word that Luann used, and so I said, well, it's our responsibility to be a positive influence on them, and we were talking about making customers happy, right? And it's easy, and it especially creeps in customer service scenarios where the customer is always right, and that sort of mentality that companies take because they want their customers to be happy. I personally think it's just an example of this toxic um, ideal that has crept into our society about making people happy. I don't think you can, right? I mean, there's people that will drag you down as far as they can take you to try to make you as unhappy as they are, right? And they feel this need to win. And the win is only defined by taking something from you that makes you upset. So I personally, my view of how customer service should be in our business is that we will be a positive influence, right? So, I will not take the responsibility to make anybody happy. I will not make my wife happy. I will not make my children happy. I will not make you happy. It is your responsibility to be happy with yourself. It is my wife's responsibility to be happy with her life. Now, I will be a positive influence. I will do my best to be a positive influence on you. I cannot make you happy. That is your responsibility. And that's the way I look at all of the relationships that I have in my life. There are certain people that refuse to be happy. I cannot make them happy. There are certain people that cannot find their way to be happy. They're trying, and I can try to give them the tools, I can try to give them guidance, but I cannot make them happy. So in the things you talk about, in the relationships you have, in the actions you take with relationships, I would request that you become aware of how you are trying to either influence or make somebody happy, and understand the difference between the two. You cannot make anybody else happy. A person decides if they are going to be happy. And having that boundary with anybody is incredibly important, right? You can please somebody. Pleasing somebody is different, right? You can do all like, and it's mostly toxic when you do everything you can to try to please somebody and they're never happy. Oh my, what kind of a disaster does that become, right? It's nice. We like seeing people be happy. We like to be responsible for that happiness. But we can't make it our responsibility for that to happen, right? So be careful of that as you go forward. Amy, you're late again, but here, and we'll go back and start over after this. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you being here. Livy, you're welcome. Carrie, absolutely agree with this. We cannot make others happy. Spot on. And love that distinction, influence versus trying to make someone happy, right? Yeah. Like my goal with everybody, even the people that don't like our products or don't like anything I have to say, I'm going to do my best to be a positive influence on you no matter what, right? I'm not going to try to tear you down. I'm not going to try to make you happy. I will be a positive influence. And to be honest with you, I even take it to like, occasionally we get people that want to unsubscribe from our email list, and they reply back, they'll reply to, or they'll send me an email and say, remove me from your email list. And my response is like, I've played with it, but it's been like, I've done it, but for future reference, you can do this yourself very quickly by clicking unsubscribe at the bottom of most emails. Like, I don't, like it maybe, I don't know, like I'm not trying to be difficult, but I think it's just like my final thing that I kind of want you to learn from me if we're parting ways forever is that you can take care of these little things yourself. And it doesn't need to be more than just clicking unsubscribe and just going about your business and us going about ours, right? So I've been exploring that, like how, like what the right response is for that. And again, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I feel like, like we can do things for ourselves, and I feel like it's it's always our responsibility to do what we can do to grow daily. So it's a weird situation for me every time that happens, because my first response is my first blunt response is, you can do this. Right? I mean, like, so let's get into Brene Brown's book. So I'm going to try to not read it word for word, but give you the basic points. And this is her emotional offloading. So basically, it's strategies that people use to offload their emotions onto other people. And I want to see if you guys can identify with any of this. And I know I've identified things that I do, and I've identified things that I've seen other people do. And there's one in particular that I've always found curious, and now I sort of have a definition for it after reading this section. So here we go. So offloading strategy number 1 is chandeliering. And she gets the word chandelier from her husband. They use it in the medical community to describe a patient's pain that is so severe, if you touch them, in a tender place, their response is involuntary. They jump up to the ceiling, the chandelier, right? So the emotion, the chandeliering she's describing is the emotional equivalent. It's especially common and dangerous in power over situations, which are environments where, because of power differentials, people with a higher position or status are less likely to be held accountable for flipping out or overreacting. This type of volatility creates distrust and disengagement. For example, someone might maintain their prized stoicism in front of customers or other people they want to impress or influence, but the second they're around people who over whom they have emotional, financial, or physical power, they explode. And because it's not a behavior seen by many other higher ups, their version of the story is usually perceived as truth. We see power over chandeliering in families, churches, schools, communities, and offices. And when you mix in issues like gender, class, race, sexual orientation, or age, the combination can be toxic. Most of us have been on the receiving end of such outbursts, bosses, friends, colleagues, that sort of thing. So, and she bolds this, so I'm going to read this part she bolded. Living, growing up, working, or worshiping on eggshells creates huge cracks in our sense of safety and self worth. Over time, these cracks can be experienced as trauma, whether this happens at work or at home. Offloading strategy number 2 is bouncing hurt. Pain is hard, and it's easier to be angry or pissed off than to acknowledge hurt. So our ego intervenes and does the dirty work. The ego doesn't own stories or want to write new endings. It denies emotion and hates curiously. I'm sorry, I hate misreading this. It denies emotion and hates curiosity. Instead, the ego uses stories as armor and alibi. The ego says feelings are for losers and weaklings. So she goes on to like all good hustlers, our ego employs crews of ruffians in case we don't comply with its demands, anger, blame, avoidance, all the things. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like that, who cares? Like nothing's gonna bother me, right? And so that's bouncing hurt. And then offloading strategy number 3 is numbing hurt. We talked a lot about numbing in the section on armory. The important thing to note here is that the addition of to numbing being a popular form of armor, we can offload emotion through it as well. And you can. I'm assuming I'm not really super educated on numbing hurt, but I'm assuming she means like whether it's alcohol or some other way of numbing ourselves to get away from or avoiding hurt. Stockpiling hurt is offloading strategy number 4. There's a quiet, insidious alternative to chandeliering, bouncing, or numbing. We can stockpile it. We're not erupting with misplaced emotions or using blame to deflect our true feelings or numbing the pain. Stockpiling starts like chandeliering by firmly packing down the pain, but instead of unleashing it on another person, we just continue to amass hurt until our bodies decide that enough is enough. The body's message is always clear. Shut down the stockpiling or I'll shut you down. The body wins every time. Midlife and mid-career are when we often start to see the effects of having stockpiled emotion for too long. The body is holding down the emotional fort, and as a result, we experience many symptoms, including anxiety, depression, burnout, insomnia, and physical pain. I think this is the one that I see very often in our customers. I think a lot of our customers purchase Define My Day because they've come to this realization that they've gone down the wrong path and they've stockpiled a lot of emotions that that they're now becoming aware of, and they feel they need to make a change. And so I think there's a significant segment of our customers that experience this one in particular. Now, this one, number 5, is the one that I was at first most bewildered by and am now more amused and curious about. But I never really had a definition, and it's something I've even asked other people about. And most people would say, well, they're just jerks or they're hypocrites. This is an explanation of this offloading technique. She calls it, strategy number 5, the umbrage. I named the strategy after J.K. Rowling's character, Dolores Umbridge, in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and I find it to be one of the most difficult offloading strategies to experience. Played brilliantly by Imelda Staunton in the films, Umbridge wears cutesy pink suits and pillbox hats, adorns her pink office with bows and trinkets decorated with kittens, and is a fan of torturing children who misbehave. Rowling writes about her: a love of all things saccharine often seems present where there is a lack of real warmth or charity. Too many cheery claims like everything is awesome. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm misreading that. Too many cheery claims like everything is awesome, or I just never really feel angry or upset, or if you're just positive you can turn that frown upside down, often mask real pain and hurt. What's true but seems counterintuitive is that we don't trust people who don't struggle. We don't have bad days, or oh, I'm sorry, who don't have bad days or hard times. We also don't develop connection with people who we don't find relatable. When light and dark are not integrated, overly sweet and accommodating can feel foreboding, as though under all that niceness is a ticking bomb. I, as an advertiser and as a person that sells a product, see the bad side of this particular personality or this particular offloading strategy. So very often, the people that make the nastiest remarks to a post or an article or sending us an email, when you go, like sometimes we get those comments where we just get curious and go, who would write this? And we go to their page on Facebook, and it is kittens and rainbows and or keep calm and whatever. I mean, there's always like this, be good to the people around you type posts. It's amazing, and you're going like this is the opposite of what you're putting out there, right? So this right now, like when I read this, I'm going, this is it. These are the umbrage people, right? And so I look at them now completely differently, understanding what it is, right? In this process, and it's the search for understanding, like in this curiosity that I've had about my own reactions and other people's reactions. The more like I've been searching for the answer to this for years now, right? As long as I've been in business, I've come across this. And we all know people like this in our lives too. Those cutesy people that, they drop the hammer when something goes wrong. And so, once you finally find somebody that goes, yeah, this is what that is. And you go, oh, whoa, I get it now. Right. And you feel so like satisfied that there's now finally a definition. So this is one that when I read this, I read it like 4 times. I'm like, this is it. And I went through that memory of all the people that have like the cute, like, kittens and like, hang in there kind of comments, right? Or, they lean heavily on religion a lot of times where they're, teaching forgiveness and piety. And then when it comes down to it, they're just nasty to people. So yeah, I can now say you're an umbrage, or you're employing umbrage. So offloading strategy number 6, and then I'll go into the comments again. I see, Livy. Offloading strategy number 6: hurt and fear, in the fear of high centering. Don't Google the term high centered. It's saying that here. More than likely, you'll pull up an image of a cow stuck on top of a fence, legs dangling on both sides, unable to go forward or backward. It's disturbing. I learned the term because my grandmother's driveway in San Antonio was 2 parallel cement strips with a mound of dirt and grass in the middle. Every now and then, my grandmother would say, the dirt and grass are getting too high. I'm going to get high-centered in my car. That's funny. One reason we deny our feelings is the fear of getting emotionally high-centered. That is, getting stuck in a way that makes it difficult to go forward or backward. If I recognize my hurt or fear or anger, I'll get stuck. Once I engage even a little, I won't be able to move backward and pretend that it doesn't matter, but moving forward might open a floodgate of emotion that I can't control. Recognizing emotion leads to feeling emotion. What if I recognize the emotion and it dislodges something and I can't maintain control? I've been there. I don't want to cry at work or on the battlefield or when I'm with my students. Getting high centered can be the worst because we feel a total loss of control. We feel powerless. And it's funny. I think about, there's so the other day we talked about, us losing our second child when that pregnancy didn't go like we wanted it to, right? And I'm in a small group where a woman was describing the death of her 18-year-old son, which happened within the past 10 years. And it triggered something really hard in me about our loss. And I think it was even like, it might have even been like the week of the anniversary of it happening, right? So I was emotionally there. But like I turned off the camera on a Zoom call. Like I just didn't want to be seen. I was trying to, like stay in neutral or something. I don't know what it was. And that may have been partly that. But, it's, in all of this, so, there's more to this as far as the proper way to handle emotions. But the main point of it is she calls it rumbling with emotion, like having the hard conversations or really being curious about what you're feeling, in handling it in an appropriate manner. And if you can identify with any of those 6 techniques, I think the first thing is being aware of it. And you can work on how to change how you might be using those techniques. And I know I can identify myself in a lot of those things. Excuse me. And, I think identification is the first step in the process, like being able to say, yep, I'm doing that. All right, so alternatively, what can I do? Well, number one, I can say, look, I'm getting emotional about this. And if you're with somebody, like one of the things that Lynn and I were always taught in counseling was that like you can take a time out, right? Doesn't mean you're never going to address the situation, but you take a time out. I'm flooded right now. I'm too emotional. We need to take a time out and come back, circle back to this and address it when we're not getting too emotional about it. And so, if you have a habit of using any of these techniques, especially now that we're in confined spaces with certain people that maybe we use them with, being aware that we do use them is step one in the process. So, yeah. The last thing I wanted to discuss, and if you guys have any comments or questions, please let me know, and we'll get to them. But the last thing I wanted to discuss is something I sent out in an email today. We've talked about it here a few times, and there's an article on Upworthy, and I will post it right now. And it's about the dangers of like these toxic motivational posts that we're all seeing right now. And believe me, I fell for it too. Like I thought I was going to be super super productive over this time because we're going to have so much time to do it. And I know a lot of us have supervisors that want us to be more productive now that we're at home and expect us even to maintain productivity. But it might not be really safe for you psychologically. And this goes back to the question that we talked about in previous sessions. When you're doing anything, check in with yourself, check in with your stress levels, check in with your health, and ask yourself, is this good for me? And, and that can be whether you're doing something productive, whether you're doing something that's moving your career forward, something with your relationship, or just checkout time. As you're watching TV, is this good for me? Should I be doing something else? If you continuously check in with yourself, you can gain some awareness there. But I think the main point in this article is that you should be aware that there is an increasing amount of stress on all of us financially. From a health perspective, we're all, nobody wants to get sick or worse. So we need to take care of ourselves and understand that while we might have more time, it doesn't necessarily mean we have more mental capacity to handle things. In fact, we might have significantly less. So cope with this stuff as best you can in the most healthy way possible. And that might mean distraction. It might mean, doing things that you wouldn't normally do. Just don't do anything to an unhealthy level. So, keep keep pressing on. Um, move forward. And I'm reminded of how we handled the economic crisis in '08 as a business. Um, we didn't get crazy. My perspective was to weather the storm, and on the other side of it is an opportunity to grow. And I think we probably need to handle that right now the same way personally. Right now is maybe not the time to step our foot on the gas if we can maintain and keep stepping forward. Like imagine you're just walking through a storm and you have a headwind, right? Snow or rain, hail's hitting you in the face. And you're just holding your hat down, trying to cover your face, and you just take small steps forward, right? And then when the things get clear, when the sun starts shining, when it's warm, and there's less wind, maybe even you get a little tailwind, you can start running again. You can start hitting the gas. You can start pressing forward faster. But right now, be very, very aware of how much negative pressure you have. And you might not be in the place where you can grow exponentially with all this time we now have, right? Now might be the time to just maintain, be consistent, and be healthy for yourself and the people around you. Good morning, Terry. Thanks for joining me. Carrie says, I read your email in the article this morning. Thank you for sending this out. I needed this info. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're a teacher. And again, my kid was watching his, first thing in the morning, he jumped on his computer and he's watching his teacher, the video. I think she was reading a book or something, right? And, like that consistency, nobody needs to be a super person, man, woman, whatever. You just need to be consistent for the people around you. And you don't have to be, and for yourself. I don't want to say just for the people around you. But, nobody's expecting anything more than a human being that's trying to navigate what's going on right now. And just do that, and we'll be fine. All right, everybody. I am going to head out. I have a kind of a lighter day today. I did a lot of my work this morning. I was up early because of the rainstorm, so I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go downstairs and have lunch and kind of go about my day the best way I can, the healthiest way I can, and plan out what we're going to do tonight. So have a great day. I hope you get through this hump day in a healthy way. Keep moving forward, and I will see you again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Take care.